So I wanted to talk about Mythic Plus, and I wanted to talk about some of the reactions from yesterday's reveal of the new affixes that are going to come out. I'm not going to dive. Maybe we'll take a look at them again. We'll dive into it. But I also wanted to talk about the reactions to them because they were very knee jerk. A lot of it stemmed from the Wowhead article that first. I think they were the ones that first broke the news that, hey, this is what's going on. This is what happens. And in their reveal, they showed in a tweet a person who had entangling roots on them. Now, one of the affixes is called entangling, and the way that it was described in the developer notes, the actual developer notes, is that you are snared, but the Wowhead team used entangling roots to show it, which is not it's not a snare, it's a root, and that messed with people's heads. So people were losing their minds. OMG, here are all the awful implications that are going to come from this affix and all the others, and blah blah blah. And then maybe about and even I had done reactions to it. I tried to be a bit more. I tried to look deeper into them, overread them, read between the lines, and be like, hey, maybe it's like this, maybe it's like this. And pretty much as soon as I put that video out, that's when Wowhead had also, maybe a little bit earlier, they had put out another article with data mining. So they revealed the actual information. Thank you, by the way, for the gifted sub. They put out actual information as to how these affixes work. And let's take a look at this, because I think that's it's worth taking a close look at these so we can understand the context. But then we're still going to keep talking about like what it is that gamers really want from Mythic Plus. Okay, there's like a whole bunch of things here. Okay, new affix data mining. Yay, found it. So afflicted. Here we go. So this is from the developer post. While in combat, afflicted souls appear that seek the aid of players. Afflicted souls spawn with poison, curse, and disease afflictions. Removing any of these afflictions or restoring the spirit to full health causes it to despawn. Failure to remove the afflictions in time will inflict players with a negative status effect. So, we'll get to the specifics here, but again, NPCs will spawn with poison, curse, and disease afflictions. So they have all three of these things. Removing any of these afflictions or maxing out its health will make it despawn. So any of those things, fulfilling any of those requirements will clear the ad, and then nothing will happen. But if you don't, bad stuff happens. So we could kind of see here. These are probably debuffs that show up on the spirit. So restoring the afflicted soul's health to full, or dispelling an ailment from it causes it to fade away. Restoring it. Yeah, so these are, I guess, the different kinds of debuffs, the different kinds of spirits. So restoring it to full, or dispelling an ailment, and then this is the thing that happens if you fail. And it has a 10-second cast. So within 10 seconds, you need to heal it or cleanse it or whatever. Now, as a healer, obviously, there is a responsibility there. As a not healer that happens to have cleansing things, they also have a responsibility there. Unless they put it all on the healer, then that's pretty jacked up. But, ideally, you would want to do that. For me as a paladin, it feels like it's over. It feels like I'm working overtime as a paladin tank, and to me that's kind of cool because I'll be able to use my freaking OP Word of Glory, which typically maxes out someone's health. Because if these things respond to Word of Glory correctly, one pop of it and they're done. That's it. That's all. That's all I need to do, and then I'm cleared. So we're not quite sure how many of them appear. Maybe people have tested it and they already know the answer, so I apologize not knowing that information in advance. But I feel like this one is easy to take care of, mostly dependent on how often do these afflicted appear and how many are there, because that would make the difference between, okay, can one person take care of it or does it need more than one person? Because within 10 seconds, a 10-second cast, if there's more than 2, gotta have help. Gotta have help. So, all right, entangling. This is the one that people were really, really scared of. And the wording is simply this: while in combat, entangling vines snare players. So, but here's how it actually works. An entangling vine snares players, reducing their movement by 50%. After 8 seconds, the vine entangles players and it stuns them. That's pretty bad. But here's the thing. Players can snap the vine by moving 10 yards away from the source. That's basically, I think this says the same thing. Yeah. And that's all it is. So it's like being in Pandaria, and there are like some other mechanics where you do this, where you click on a thing and then you have this vine that's attached to you, and then you just run away from it and then you're done. This is like, the way I'm seeing this is like Quaking. It's like Quaking, but more. And Quaking, by the way, has been removed from, it's going to be removed in 10.1. Quaking, Grievous, and Volcanic. So the very basic spread or move or something like that, players have regularly trashed on these affixes, not because they're hard, but because they're easy, unless, outside of certain circumstances where Quaking is like totally fatal, where people are forced to stack together, or they're just kind of pulled in, and there's really bad timing. But overall, people have kind of panned those affixes by being nothing. And this is what we get. This is what we get for trash talking an affix, where it's either too hard or too easy. It gets removed, but they're going to add something else to this. In this case, entangling is very much a personal responsibility sort of thing. Basically move 10 yards. Move 10 yards. Some people are going to have an easier time to do that. Others not so much. This will be more than likely tuned all over the place to where it's either not so bad or it's even worse or whatever. But as for like just the very broad general handling of this affix, this doesn't feel like super impactful. It like I said, it kind of feels like Quaking, but but different. Get out of the thing or else, and then you're done. So pretty quick and easy. Not too fond of the stun. I think maybe like if you don't, then you'll get I don't know, then you take damage or something. I don't know, but it just makes you move. Okay, so last one. Incorporeal. And this is what the dev note says. While in combat, incorporeal beings appear and attempt to destabilize players with spells that reduce their damage and healing done. Incorporeal beings are susceptible to all forms of crowd control. So let's this one's pretty clear and easy to understand. So damage taken is reduced by 99%. It's immune to AoE. They're basically there forever. Damage and healing done is reduced by 15%. This is the spell that they cast if you don't take care of them. Now, incorporeal, it lasts for 20 seconds. So this is how long they're up. That at least is what it tells me. So if you stun it, or if you do like a big CC sort of thing and range it, that's it. We don't quite know what the range of destabilize is. I imagine it's going to be like pretty easy, so whatever. But I feel like okay, they're up for only 20 seconds. Just run away, line of sight. That's kind of it. Yeah, sheep it, whatever. Questions here are, okay, how long? How many are there? How many of these ads are there? Is that going to be a problem? And this is an everybody sort of responsibility. Anyone who's got CC and things like that, those are going to be like effective to these sorts of things. Because I want to go over like these affixes and try to get a grasp of what some players' reactions are and what I'm kind of reading into, because it feels like one, Blizzard is trying to, they're really doubling down on affixes that are designed to challenge people. People will also twist that around and say, no, it's a punishment. They're both correct, I guess. It just depends on how you decide to take that in. And there are a lot of folks that have been asking for hey, we need positive affixes. We need things that are fun, Blizz. Stop giving us things that are punishing and unfun, because these aren't fun. Now that's a totally okay opinion to have. These are not what I would consider, wow, these are great. These make me really excited. It's more like, okay, this is the thing that I got to deal with. Can I deal with it? Heck yeah. Or nope. So what I'm hearing in the discourse over the past, less than 24 hours is, we want to have more positive affixes. And I also want to address the idea of, what if there were no affixes at all? What if they just took them out and all it was just scaling mobs? They get harder, they hit like trucks eventually, and like that's it. So let's talk about what would happen, or what are some of the unintended consequences that could happen from that, apart from it would save the game. Mythic Plus would be like a utopia. Because me, I gotta consider like the drawbacks, the other sides of things, because I am a professional devil's advocate and fence walker. Positive affixes, when I think of those, the best thing that I can think of really are the seasonal affixes, for the most part. Thundering might be an exception, but a seasonal affix, in a nutshell, and feel free to bring up your favorite one if you like, is it's a thing that you got to deal with, but if you deal with it right, ultimately it makes you better. It makes the key easier. It makes mobs die faster. It's a positive if you overcome the thing, right? Or a kiss curse. And ever since the team brought that up, the term, we bring it up like it's our favorite thing. Yeah, we need more kiss curse sorts of mechanics because that feels more engaging. That feels more fun and yada, yada, yada. There's a bit of a drawback to that, though. So let's talk about thundering, I guess. Not the best first example, but oh well. It's the most recent one. Thundering gives you a DPS buff while it runs. But that at the end of thundering, if you still have the buff, then it definitely does not stay as a buff. It becomes a debuff. You get stunned and you take massive damage, and it sucks. You don't want to do that. You want to have it handled. And with thundering, you have the choice on whether or not you want to keep that buff up for the sake of doing more damage, or if you want to clear it right away because you're in a situation where this is like tough, and I'm better off just stacking with whoever, finding the right person, and clearing the debuff right away. Buff debuff right away. There were still a lot of negative reactions to it because people were like, nah, man, this is like way too much. There's too much going on. It's a layering mechanics and other affixes that make this really punitive. And I think that was good feedback because it does do that. I see the intent that the WoW team is trying to do with that. They're trying to introduce something where, hey, we're going to give you a buff, but there's a risk. And I think that the way that you clear it, or the way that you get rid of it, is something that I think that was what was kind of like, I don't know. So like, what if thundering instead was like, okay, when thundering goes out, a circle appears around you. It's a personal circle that's just for you, and it's a buff. It's like a ring of power, not ring of power. The mage thing where you stand in it and then you do more damage. But the longer you stand in it, or if you're still standing in it by the time it expires, then you take massive damage or you die or whatever. So it's very much like a choice thing. But if it was like a personal thing, you don't have to rely on others or whatever. Maybe that would have been better as like a sort of kiss curse, because now it introduces that risk. But here's kind of the problem with something like that, because here's another example. Prideful. I've talked about Prideful as my least favorite affix ever. I hate it. It's doo-doo. And many people disagree. That's fine, right? I just want to reiterates just how much I don't like it. And here's why. You're doing prideful, you're doing like you're doing the other side or something like that, and you gotta pull mobs like in a really specific order to almost to like mathematical perfection. Because if you screw up prideful, if you pull prideful wrong, then you don't get that positive thing. So for those who forgot what prideful does, every 20 or so percentage, towards clearing your mobs, a prideful thing will appear. It's a hard hitting mob. Ideal, in some cases, beyond the high level, you want to like fight it by itself, and then you get a DPS buff. This DPS buff lasts for I don't remember how long, but the strat was DPS until the prideful mob just comes out, kill it, and then go to like the next couple of packs and then just vaporize them, or do that with the boss, because you clear stuff, then get prideful, nuke the boss, then you're done. The problem there with something like that is if you screw up, then that really does damage to your momentum of nailing that key, of timing that thing. Now, if Mythic Plus didn't have timers at all, we wouldn't care. It's not a big deal because there's no consequences. There's that sense of urgency. But it's not. We're dealing with Mythic Plus, where you gotta go, and you gotta go right. So this is obviously coming from a more personal space, because I'm a failure at prideful. But that's the example that I'm trying to make here, is that a positive affix or a kiss curse affix subtly, in a subtle way, is a very toxic and very negative affix, because what it does to the player's head is you got to do this right. And if you don't do it right, then this key is going to deplete. Or if anything, it's going to really damage your hopes of clearing this key. And I remember during Shadowlands, because that's as far as my memory goes, a lot of folks were like, oh, prideful screwed up, dead key. And the key would break. It didn't happen to everyone. Some people were totally fine with it. Some people didn't care. But I think more than any other recent affix, because again, I don't remember too well, a bad prideful pull or pulling mobs wrong, like the pull order, it mattered so much, and it caused people to just rage out. People got really pissed whenever the pulls went out of order or prideful pulled at the wrong time, and you just don't get that sort of benefit. So what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to a kiss curse affix, yes, it does provide a positive benefit, but if you mess that up, then what would have been a positive benefit would be like a double negative almost, because one, you screwed up, and two, that's going to mess with your time on those keys. Whereas what we deal with here, things like quaking, volcanic, they're things that kind of happen all the time, on at regular intervals, but they're just things that you sort of like deal with. And some people, they would want things like, oh, if you avoid volcanic, then you get a DPS buff or something like that. You should be able to do that, which comes off as a little bit weird to me, because that just, that's just saying, hey, we just want more DPS buffs in Mythic Plus. We want it to be more fun. Whereas if you don't do it in Mythic Plus, then it's just not fun, because you're not doing anything extra. You're not getting any cool benefit or cool buff out of it. And that comes off as weird. Like, this is very accusatory, and I don't mean this. This is very much just kind of coming off the top of my head. But it's like, oh, we want Mythic Plus to be more fun and have more cool things, and the rest is like whatever. We just want it to be fun. We just want more power. Which kind of leads me to the other argument that people are making. Hey, just no affixes. How about we just don't have any affixes at all? Let's just have the mobs scale up and hit harder, and like that's it. And this goes into the conversation of what is it that makes Mythic Plus feel like a drag for some people? And why has Mythic Plus evolved the way that it has? Because right now we're going to enjoy this kind of era of new season, totally new dungeons. Okay. And that's come to the point where, hey, if we're going to get totally new dungeons, then we don't need seasonal affixes anymore. We don't need like a temporary thing. We just need these rotating affixes and like that's it. But what if we didn't have any at all? What if season 1 of Dragonflight was these 8 dungeons, and then season 2 was these other 8 dungeons, and season 3 was these other 8 dungeons? Cool. There's a bit of consistency there, but what would that do? What would that also do? How would that affect the player psyche if we knew that? I'm trying to think of a dungeon. Algathar Academy. What if Algathar Academy for the entire season felt the same? What if it felt the exact same way? Every pull could be handled the same way, with the exception of, okay, this mob or this pack has reached a threshold where they hit like crazy, and now we need to handle things a certain way. What the community would come up with, what the data would come up with is, and we have this now, where we have meta comps. It's like, okay, this sort of comp that has these sorts of CCs and blah, blah, blah. It's the most adaptable for any situation. Cool beans. I feel like that meta would be even tighter. It would be even more specific. Like, hey, this Algathar Academy, here is the comp to get the highest key or to get the easiest clear. So those classes or those specs are going to have the easiest time getting into those kinds of keys. Whereas other people, like if a Destro Warlock is the least ideal spec for Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, they're never going to get in there. That's hyperbole, by the way. But they're going to have a much harder time getting in there as opposed to the meta thing, because people's perceptions are going to influence who gets like into those groups. And the behavior is going to be the same. And people who are advocating for that, for no affixes, it just makes me wonder, dude, it feels like these people are just asking for like the daily heroic, but harder. And to get and really all they really want, they don't want to be challenged. This is, again, very accusatory. I am sorry. But I feel like these people don't really want to be challenged. They just want a path to high-level gear. And I think of other conversations that people have about, well, the best gear and the best rewards should come from the hardest content. But we also have maybe not the same people, but people kind of in that same category, kind of, who are like, I should be able to run 2s and get the trinket that I want, and then power that up by just running low-level keys. So which is it, dudes? Do you want to be challenged? Do you just want the gear? And how do you want that done? Because meanwhile, there's other folks out there, world content players and things like that. They're like, hey, we just want like a path that feels fun, that lets us get good gear. Now, there are also people who want to be able to get like, best in slot mythic level stuff from just doing world quests. That's a slightly different conversation. But distilling and breaking everything down, people just want to be able to have that path and be able to get like the best things. But at what point do people want to be challenged? And is it okay that the WoW team is doubling down and they're digging in their heels by saying that, hey, if you want to be rewarded, you're going to have to complete these more complex challenges that we present to you. But hey, there's a reward from that. So what's best? And it's hard to do that because, the spectrum of WoW players and their skill levels and their desires for what they want is very wide. It's extremely wide. And everyone's got their takes, and no one's wrong. I might disagree with some folks that are out here or in chat, even though I don't have it displayed. I'm sorry. Our opinions, our takes, they run along like this very wide spectrum. I empathize a little bit with the struggle that this WoW team has for itself by having things that offer powerful rewards and the gauntlet that they try to throw down in order for people to achieve that. Something like this, these affixes, these feel like challenges. They're not positives, but they feel like challenges that if I can overcome them and still complete and time that key on the 16, 17, whatever, I'm going to get something out of it. So these affixes aren't going to, they're not positive affixes, but they are, things that if I can overcome and time the key, then I get something out of it. So there is a positive that comes out of it. It just doesn't come like the way that we think. And with affixes, that's what they are. They're not designed, I admit they're not designed to be fun. They're not designed to be, wow, this is cool. I can't wait to play this because this is going to make me feel powerful. That's not their intent. Affixes are going to be annoying because of two reasons. One, because they're obnoxious to deal with, because they're hard, because they're punitive, because it's going to cause me lots of trouble. I may not be able to overcome it. And two, because this isn't really anything. This is just a nuisance. It's just something for me to, it's just a quick thing, and it's dumb. Why even have it, Blizz? But I want to, I very strongly feel like having kiss curse affixes is a very dangerous road to run, because I think there are many who don't quite realize that the kiss curse sort of affix, it introduces a different sort of toxicity and negativity. If you don't handle it well, and you screw that up, then the group is punished anyway. In a sense, it's kind of like thundering. It's a double thing. Like it's not just a kiss curse affix. Like, you are the affix. If you screw up, you mess with the group. That's not good. Now, of course, if you stand in the volcanic and die, that's a very direct that's a very direct sense of punishment, and punishment for not doing the affixes correctly. But I kind of see it as the same thing. And now I'm gassed. I know I've been very rambly about this. So, folks on comments, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I come from a place that is not like the highest end Mythic Plus, hardly. You guys may have much better perspectives on this, but I'd love to hear what you think. That's the video. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.